We jump into now the first topic of conversation, folks, and it's on the fuse has been lit, ladies and gentlemen. More lighter fluid has been poured onto or added to an already brewing fire. That is the disrespect that's being shown to Alabama quarterback Mac Jones. And former Crimson Tide QB Greg McElroy, who was a part of the 2009 national championship team, the first one under head coach Nick Saban. He of course now works for the SEC network, part of ESPN. He was on a local Atlanta-based radio station. I think it was Extra 1600 or Extra 1300. It was a local-based radio station out of Atlanta, and he talked about how Jamie Newman, the transfer quarterback from Wake Forest that's now at Georgia, is way more talented than Mac Jones. He brought up the upside of Jamie Newman, how he's very athletic, big arm, big size, big capability, big playmaking ability. You don't really see too many quarterbacks like Jamie Newman coming across college football, so you got to appreciate it when you have one like that. And he's like, well, Mac Jones is good, Mac Jones is solid, but Mac Jones is going to have just a great, supporting cast. Jamie Newman, way more talented than what Mac Jones is. And I got to thinking about, Greg McElroy's statement. And here's a guy in Greg that, once again played for Alabama, was a part of a national championship team. There were moments that Greg had at Alabama that were great moments. There were also moments that, McElroy had that Alabama won in spite of him. But, at the same time, just looking at Jamie Newman here for a minute here. I'm not saying the young man is not talented, because he is. He's gifted. He's athletic. He's a dual threat. He can make big plays. He did something that hasn't been done in Wake Forest in quite some time. That's make the Demon Deacons relevant. Prior to Jamie Newman, when were we ever talking about Wake Forest? The last time it was with Riley Skinner at quarterback, and that was, 2005, if I'm not mistaken. So, Wake Forest hadn't been relevant in a long time, and it's got, Jamie Newman to thank for getting it back to relevancy. But I'm going to throw this out right here. The Demon Deacons were 8-5 this past season, right? 4 of its 5 losses, Newman played a big role in that. So 4 of the 5 losses, it lost to Syracuse, it lost to Louisville, it lost to Virginia Tech, it lost to Michigan State, and it lost to Clemson. So, 4 of those 5 losses, Jamie Newman played a big role in. And in those losses here, Newman completed just 49.2% of his passes. 49.2%. If you're way more talented than Mac Jones, then just off talent alone, you can provide a 50% completion clip, or at least over 50%. But he's supposed to be way more talented than Mac, and in those losses, just 49.2% completion clip. Then you look at, in those losses, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. 7 touchdowns to 8 picks. Mac Jones, way better ratio than Jamie Newman had. But on top of that, Newman, who started in more games than Jones, played in more games than Jones. How about a QBR of 58.2 the entire season? QBR 58.2. And then he had a passer rating of 145.4 the entire season. Mac Jones, who only started in 4 games, but 3 big ones, had a higher QBR and a higher passer rating than Jamie Newman. But then you have the ones that say, well, Steven, you're being too hard. You're being too judgmental. The only, great defense Newman faced was Clemson, and not everybody's going to be Clemson. They got Brent Venables. They got Dabo Sweeney. They got all these big guns. They got all these big players. Not everybody is going to be Clemson, so throw that game out. Okay. We'll throw that game out. Virginia Tech no longer had Bud Foster. It's been long gone without Frank Beamer. Virginia Tech beat Wake Forest. Virginia Tech had a pretty solid defense there, and Jamie Newman against the Hokies had 2 interceptions in that game. And then let's look at Syracuse. Why don't we? Syracuse under Dino Babers. Syracuse, not the greatest team in the world, but even, the Orange more times than not puts together a defense that even gives Clemson struggles, and it gave Wake Forest with Jamie Newman struggles as, Newman completed just 6 of 13 passes for 71 yards and 1 pick prior to sustaining an injury. And then you look at some of the struggle wins that Wake Forest had with Newman. I mean, you played against first-year head coach in Mack Brown, of whom hadn't been in college football for a long time prior to going back to the game and coaching North Carolina. I mean, Wake Forest should have wiped the floor with North Carolina. If Jamie Newman is way more talented than Mac Jones, Wake Forest should have wiped the floor with North Carolina. That didn't happen. They barely squeaked by the Tar Heels 24-18. And then you played Boston College. When was the last time Boston College was relevant besides Doug Flutie and the Miracle Hail Mary against Miami? When was Boston College relevant? Boston College hasn't been relevant since Matt Ryan, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, who played in 2007 for the Golden Eagles. You should have wiped the floor with Boston College. Wake Forest barely squeaked by the Eagles 27-24. Should have wiped the floor with them if Jamie Newman is way more talented than Mac Jones. I mean, how about Florida State, who's been an utter train wreck? Florida State was a train wreck in the last couple of years with Jimbo Fisher. It's been a train wreck ever since then. They can't seem to find a quarterback. They can't seem to find an offense. You blow the doors off of Florida State, but Wake Forest barely squeaks by Florida State 22-20, but Jamie Newman, way more talented than Mac Jones. And then Michigan State in the bowl game, of course, they suffered a 27-21 loss, and Michigan State struggled a good bit this year. Jamie Newman couldn't even beat Michigan State. So, I mean, you look at this. The guy's talented. The guy's good. But he's going up against defenses now where every single week in the SEC, somebody is going to be ready to take his head completely off. Each week in the SEC, you're going up against way better defenses in this conference, and especially with Georgia replacing 2 strong offensive linemen. It's got to replace DeAndre Swift. It's got, it's got some solid running backs, but you're replacing DeAndre Swift. You had wide receivers that were dropping passes left and right with Jake Fromm last year. Are they going to be good by Jamie Newman? Who knows? But in terms of Mac Jones, here's a brother that had 2 games where he posted a QBR of 90 or above. That was Arkansas 91.9, Michigan 95.3. I mean, Mac Jones had an average QBR in the 3 games he started in of 92.3, had an explosive passer rating of 197.5, and then, of course, the biggest argument is, well, Steven, Jamie Newman can run. Mac Jones can't run. Go back and watch the Iron Bowl. There were 2 runs in that game, and I was on the field. I'm locking souls with Mac Jones. I'm on the field here. Mac Jones had a run on 3rd and 7 in the first quarter where he trucks a guy over, gets hit by another guy, still picks up the first down, and then with 1:15 to go in the fourth quarter, it was 4th and 10. Auburn up 48-45. Mac Jones pulls the ball down, getting it down the field, picks up the first down with his legs, might I remind you, allowing Joseph Belovas a chance to have a shot to tie the game at 48 with the field goal late in regulation. It's not Mac Jones' fault that Joe B missed the field goal. No, it's not Mac Jones' fault because Mac put Alabama in the best situation to make the field goal to try to force overtime here. So in Jamie Newman's best matchups here, we're talking about schools like Elon, where he threw 5 touchdowns, schools like Rice, where he threw 3 touchdowns, schools like Utah State, where he threw 3 touchdowns. Mac Jones is putting it on the best defensive front in the SEC, probably one of the best defensive fronts in college football in Auburn. Mac Jones put it on Michigan in the bowl game. Mac Jones even put it on Arkansas that has a pulse of a defense. But Greg McElroy, Jamie Newman, way more talented than Mac. The fuse is lit, y'all. The fire's lit. Mac Jones is going to shake some folks up. Don't be surprised if this does not go back to 2015, where you had everybody talking about, Leonard Fournette, nobody showed love to Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry just snatched the Heisman from Leonard Fournette in one game. Don't be surprised if week 3 of this season between Alabama and Georgia follows that same motif. But we take our first break here on the show, but don't touch that dial. Upon our return, we entertain your phone calls, your thoughts, your questions, your tweets, your chats, your concerns. Bring them in here right after this.
Every sports fan deserves the proper representation. Whitwell Sports introduces to you the Title Towel. Wave that Title Towel in the air like you just don't care in support of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Only $9.99 and it lasts a lifetime. Head on over to whitwellsports.com and get your Title Towel today. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Thank you for watching Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel. To continue to get the best in Alabama football content, subscribe here and turn on your notifications to stay connected with the hottest shows covering your Crimson Tide.